There has been discussion on legalizing psychedelics in California because of the benefits they offer, especially with treating PTSD. Today, we have a panel of experts who have concern about legalizing psychedelics in California. They are going to tell us what they have seen and why this might not be a good idea. I'm Siamak Karami. Welcome to California Insider. Joel, it's great to have you on. Frank, it's great to have you on. And Dr. Lev, it's great to have you on.
Pleasure to be here.
There has been a movement to legalize psychedelics over the last few years. Some of you are involved directly with people and you're on campus, you know what's going on in campuses, and you're in the emergency room. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the issue of psychedelics needs to be separated in terms of medical use, therapeutics, and adult use. And when we get into troubles, when we kind of mix that, it's like, oh, we should just legalize it for everyone. If you're talking about medical therapeutics of psilocybin, there are some benefits, but those have to be done and approved in a medical way, in the standard medical way, and that's through the FDA process. There's a lot of medications that want to come to the market, and we do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials of medications, appropriate dosing, recommended by a certain physician under certain conditions, and there's a pathway to get that done. The other way is recreational or adult use of whatever, drugs, legal, illegal, psychedelics. And if we go that path, we need to learn from history and learn from the mistakes we made legalizing marijuana and what happened in a public health way to our people.
Most drugs, people build up a tolerance to. And I know there's a lot of people out there with mental health issues. They say 70% of our students suffer from anxiety and depression and those sort of mental health issues. So they self-medicate. And when you self-medicate, your body builds up a tolerance. And to continue to feel good, they end up taking more and more, and then they start using with other substances. It just builds from there, and it kind of gets out of control for them.
Did you see examples of this for young adults here in California?
There was one student, not on our campuses, thank God, but who believed he could fly under the influence of psychedelics. He was up at the top of a parking structure and jumped off because he thought he could fly. And there's a 19-year-old who lost his life under the influence of psychedelics.
Do you think this can go to a point where psychedelics become legal?
Right now, Californians do understand the huge problems associated with drugs, especially the deleterious psychedelics. And more drugs will lead to more crimes and also more homelessness. Now, CHP has maintained that if the psychedelics are legalized, our freeways may not be safe. And the former or the immediate past president of California Sheriff's Association has stated that California police officers spend 2/3 of their time on drugs. Actually, people remember not too long ago, there was a high-profile case really illustrating how pernicious mushrooms are. An off-duty pilot of Alaska Airlines took magic mushroom 48 hours before a flight. But then, even after 2 days, the drug still affected him so much that he tried to turn off the engine of the plane. And fortunately, he was stopped at the last minute by his coworkers. But then he was handcuffed and sent to the back of the plane. Still, he got the energy and desire to try to open up the emergency door. But fortunately, at the last second, he was stopped. So far, there has been no scientific evidence proving the innocuousness and effectiveness of the psychedelics. Even with the 2 studies put forward by the major proponent, namely by NYU and by Johns Hopkins University. The conclusion was that the psychedelics can only have positive effects in a strictly controlled environment. They are not ready for personal consumption now, certainly not for widespread distribution.
Now, the proponents are saying that they want to do this as a treatment with supervision, right?
They want to do pilot studies with the universities, but that circumvents the FDA process. share a story of a different medication, rimonabant. That was a medication that was a cannabinoid receptor blocker. And the thought was, hey, if you're using marijuana, then you get the munchies. And maybe if we block that cannabinoid receptor, it'll help with weight loss. And back in 2006, the European Union approved this new weight loss wonderful medication that everybody wanted to be on, and everybody was losing weight, and it was such a wonderful wonder drug. And FDA would not approve it, and people were angry at the United States and the FDA for doing that. But then FDA analyzed the data on a population-wide basis, and while some people were losing weight, there was a 30% adverse events, including psychiatric events, including possibly 3 people who died from suicide. And they would not approve it. And with analysis, the proper analysis of the population data, Europe pulled that off the market. So there's a reason. You know, when you hear anecdotal stories like this helped this person, that helped what that person, you know, that may be true, but you don't make a population decision like that on a whole country and in a society in that way. And that's why approving medicines in the proper way through the FDA process is very important.
Has FDA issued a statement about this, a positive statement on potentially?
Not that I'm aware of. There's a process. There's many medications who want to get approved. There's a medication called CS1103 that's a sequestrant for methamphetamine. Like, we need that here in California, right? With all the, you know, we're the ground zero for methamphetamine. And we see patients all the time, very high psychotic and methamphetamine, and this drug would capture the drug and take it out of the body within minutes. Like, we need this drug right away. But there's a process, and it takes years, unfortunately, and it takes a lot of money. So you have to ask yourself, why is there a whole industry really pushing for this drug to circumvent the proper way of approving medications?
Well, the other side actually want psychedelics to be exempted from the FDA process. But every drug has to be included in this process. Otherwise, citizens will be at risk. That should be the number one top priority of the legislators.
I worked New Year's Eve at Padre Stadium. They had a rave concert. The ambulances were bringing us patients all night long because people were using psychedelics to enjoy the music. One guy, you know, ran naked, tearing off his clothes. I think we just found him with his American Express Platinum card. You know, they were not our local people. These people came from all over the country to enjoy music, and they became psychotic, not aware of their reality, high blood pressure, a high heart rate. That's why they take off their clothes, because they get hot. That's why you hear about people when they're on drugs. Why are they always naked? That's why. They physically, their body gets hot. What do we do in the emergency department when someone is high on drugs and agitated and a danger to themselves and other people? Because he was fighting with police, is we give them more drugs to sedate them and just to kind of control a dangerous situation. Another guy had a seizure. And another ones, they're doing wild, dangerous things, unaware of their surrounding and typical potential deadly side effects. And so there's serious consequences. We see that in medical studies. So in one literature review, the literature review is not just one study or two studies. This took 1,700 studies on psychedelics to see whether they're effective on depression. Because people say, oh, well, it helps my depression. So they took all these studies together and found out that, yes, with a high dose of psilocybin, 25 milligrams, which is considered a high dose, there were some people who benefited with antidepressant symptoms. But like 80% of them had side effects. So there's a side effect profile, and compared to regular antidepressants that are available by FDA process, they did not show a benefit. So you have to consider population before you say, oh yeah, everybody should use this and everybody should want it, or veterans should have access to it. I have 2 daughters in the Navy, so I really care about our veterans, and they deserve the best and not something experimental. And there's a scientific way of making evaluation. Like the bill says, oh, well, we have veterans who've committed suicide. Of course, that's tragic. That should never happen. Of course, we have compassion for that. But let's study the suicide data. How many people who've died by suicide had psilocybin in their system? We're starting to track that. So we're tracking, in San Diego, for example, I look at all deaths under the age of 25. 25 is the age of the developing brain. People like to say 21 for adult use. That's the legal age, but the science age for the brain is 25. And if I look at all the people who died by suicide, the number one drug is THC. But we're now seeing psilocybin there too. A 16-year-old boy jumped to his death in 2023, and he was on antidepressants and he has psilocybin in his system too. Why did he jump? Did he think that he was being chased by the mob, like you said in your story? Or did he think that he could fly because it causes psychosis?
Thank you for watching California Insider on YouTube. If you like our content, make sure to press the like button and comment so that the algorithm can reach more people. If you're not a subscriber yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel so that we can update you with the trends and issues that are going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. Now, Joel, a lot of people are saying, people that are proponents of this type of legalization, that the war on drugs have failed. And this is a solution. Maybe decriminalizing these drugs could be a good idea. What are your thoughts on that?
If you look at what drugs have done over time, crime rate goes up. Those under the influence of psychedelics are 18% more likely to commit a violent crime and 27% more likely to commit a property crime, a theft. And that's what's going to happen when you legalize drugs. People die from that. If you look at the 5 states that originally legalized drugs in their state, they're backpedaling. They're trying to get back out of this. I think the first year there was over a 5% increase in traffic collisions and over 4% increase in fatalities, while there wasn't that increase in the states that didn't legalize it. And so the other issue is if we legalize it in California, it's still a violation of the Controlled Substance Act. It's a Schedule I narcotic under that act, and you're setting people up to be arrested federally for using this when they thought it was completely legal, and it's not. It's still not going to be legal.
The problem is when you say legalize, we're the United States, so as soon as you legalize, you've commercialized. That's what happened with marijuana, and that's what people voted for. But what they got is the 3% little joint became 99% shatters, dabs, vapes, drinks, candies. And, now we're seeing babies in the emergency department on a regular basis. The number one cause of poisoning of children under the age of 5, these are not kids with a drug problem, they get into their parents' candy, is marijuana. And that's the commercialization. You see candy, what do little babies do? They put it in their mouth and they end up in the emergency department. And they're not laughing and giggling. They're encephalopathic, their eyes are rolling back in the head, some end up on the ICU on a ventilator. And that's
do you
what
see
happens.
that regularly in your emergency room?
Every children's hospital in the country has probably seen that. It's the number one poisoning of little children in our country. We could debate whether it should be legal or not. But what happens when you legalize without regulation, without safeguards, bumpers, for public health protection, then that's what happens.
I want to add that the proponents of drugs keep saying that the war on drug fails because after spending so much time and the money, there are still a whole bunch of drug criminals out there. But actually, it's impossible for us to arrest every one of them, right? So, this is just an excuse.
Now, Joel, you mentioned that the crime statistics have gone up. How does that relate to legalization? Do people do more when these things are legalized?
Yeah, they do more, and it ends up starting at a younger age. Drugs are available. You can pretty much buy anything you want on the streets or sometimes in these smoke shops, and so they're available. And when you legalize drugs, then you start pushing down the age. And I don't want 15-year-olds, 16, I don't even want adults running around under the influence. You drive down the freeways in LA and on a warm day when people have their windows down, you're going to smell marijuana. It's not supposed to happen in a vehicle, but yet it is. So, and it's illegal in the vehicle, but they're still doing it. So driving under the influence absolutely increases, as well as traffic collisions and fatalities.
And what is it like to police when you are having a portion of society that they're doing these drugs?
It's tough. People under the influence of drugs like psychedelics get superhuman powers. And I remember as a young police officer, we had to take a guy into custody, and there was 6 of us, and he was smaller than me, but yet, and I had some big partners with us that day, and he took all 6 of us off the front porch and landed on top of us. So it's not easy.
And then you bring them to me.
Yeah, and then we bring them to her once we get them into custody, yes. So it's not easy policing them. They don't listen. It takes them a lot of time, and a lot of officers don't realize that sometimes them not listening is them processing what we're asking them to do, because it takes them a while. And it takes a lot of training to get that through to officers, that sometimes you got to be patient, but sometimes being patient could be more dangerous for them. It could be them planning a plot to take their life or to try and an escape. And so it's very difficult for police officers.
Their first bill, introduced in 2020, was SB 519. This bill was already very aggressive, never talked about research or pilot study. This bill actually aimed at legalizing most dangerous psychedelics right there, and also virtually for recreational purposes. This bill included some of the most dangerous psychedelics, such as LSD, MDMA, and ketamine. This bill also allowed social sharing and public transfer. So that's why it got strong opposition, and we managed to defeat it at the Assembly Appropriation Committee. And they quickly came back the very next year with SB 58. We worked very hard, and finally we got a veto from Governor Newsom. And after that, because of these defeats, they got no alternative. You know what they did? They turned to research, because that's the only way they can stay alive to keep fighting for psychedelics, right? But this bill was more than research. It actually already created a big framework or industry for eventual legalization of psychedelics, including cultivation, transfer, storage, and distribution. And also would have cost our state a lot of money. So it got strong opposition, including moderate Democrats. And then last year, they came back again, SB 751, also research, because they got no other alternative. And we also blocked it, because on any given day, anybody can be seriously harmed if the psychedelics are legalized. In the words of CHP, our freeways may not be safe if the psychedelics are legalized.
This year, the dollar has lost 10% of its value so far. While I'm a big believer in dollar, because I've lived in 4 countries and I know this is the best country, and if there was any paper currency anybody could trust would be the dollar, it doesn't hurt to look into other options to preserve your capital. That's why we have the Beverly Hills Precious Metals Company sponsoring this episode. I did a short interview with the owner of this company to tell us what's happening in the gold and silver space. We're going to place this at the end of this episode. Make sure to watch this interview and let us know what you think. Now let's go back to our interview. Now, Joel, you said people driving in LA, if the windows are down, you can smell the marijuana. How does that impact the police force, the law enforcement? Whether it was legal or illegal, how would you handle that?
It's tough, because we're at a time in law enforcement where most police agencies are understaffed. I know LA went from about just over 10,000 to now I think they have about 8,600 police officers. That's 1,400. That's more than a 10% drop. So I think that's got an effect. In Arizona, where it's not legal yet, you can smell it on the freeways there as well. And so you definitely have people driving under the influence, but I don't believe you have enough officers to stop everybody that is smoking in their cars. I had a cadet working for me who had a bright future. He was applying to be a police officer, 21 years old. For whatever reason, he decided to do, I believe, marijuana and maybe some psychedelics, and got in a traffic collision where he ran into a tree at about 10 o'clock in the evening. The sheriffs were called, And for some reason, he went into a psychosis type state of mind, and he came out with a knife and went after the sheriffs, and they shot him and ended up killing him. And it's unfortunate. He had a bright future. But I think once you legalize stuff, you're going to see that happen more and more, because it's not legal, but yet people are still getting their hands on it. If you legalize it, you just push down the age of people able to get their hands on these illicit drugs.
So based on some researchers that we have had on the show, they told us this needs to be under supervision, but then the results they have got is good for some of the patients. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that sounds right, that they may have some good results in a very controlled way, because they're selecting the patients, they're selecting the dosages, they're getting therapy at the same time. But based on that anecdotal evidence, I think they would even agree you don't unleash that on Amazon at the whole population. And it has to be, that's very controlled. And I think that they would even say that there are serious side effects and consequences if it's not done under supervision.
And it changes the dosage and what else is mixed into it. If you look at marijuana, the potency of marijuana and THC in marijuana today is up over 100% sometimes. And so if we legalize this or run studies that are uncontrolled and unsupervised, where are they going to get it? And is it going to be pure? And is it going to be really, really potent? You just don't know what's going to be involved in it. And like she said, it has to be under the care of a doctor. The other thing that they need to look at in a controlled study is what are the long-term side effects. So after 10, 15 years of using this, are we going to build up a tolerance and have to use much more to feel better? And then what happens?
Or have more mental health
right.
problems and increased mental health burden on our society.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of first responders and veterans who want to feel better. And quite frankly, I think some of them are willing to try anything to feel better. But this isn't the answer unless it's under a doctor's care and a controlled study.
There's some success for a number of people in dealing with these drugs, right? And now there's an effort to widen this and decriminalize and legalize it. But you guys are saying if we take this and multiply it, it might have really bad side effects for the community.
I'm saying you need to separate the issues of medical and recreational and not mix them up. If something is medical and we're saying that, okay, there may be some promising of psilocybin in certain diagnoses, great. I could write a prescription now for marijuana and Marinol. I mean, there's a way of doing that where it's a certain milligrams and you know the potency and you know that there's no contaminants and for certain indications.
So essentially going to a doctor.
And it needs to go, and it needs to go through the FDA process. So they could write,
So know the side effects and do the studies.
Right, and regulated in a FDA process, so you're not getting, various bath salts in your psychedelics or other things that are, or lead poisoning or other things that we're seeing in that way. When you buy something from a pharmacy with your name on it, with the indication, that is the process for calling something a real medicine. Now, the debate about recreational use, that's a separate debate that we can have, but what we've learned that if you legalize something, the next day it's commercialized, especially in California.
People come in and
everybody's getting it. And if you're going to do it that way, maybe that's what people want. But the lesson that we've learned is it should be regulated at the same time. Don't say, oh, we'll regulate it later. And the regulation should have no conflict of interest. You can't have the fox guarding the hen house, right? So it has to be no conflict of interest in that regulation with the public health perspective of protecting children, of regulating potency, marketing for children. We've learned all these lessons with tobacco and alcohol. We're just, I guess, the industry also learned the lessons and knows how to market and move their products along. But the public health voice is much smaller, but very important for the public.
The positive effects that the drug proponents have been talking about related to the psychedelics actually can only happen under strictly controlled environment, according to the medical experts of NYU and Johns Hopkins University. So, they contend that, psychedelics at this point are not ready for personal consumption, certainly not for widespread distribution. And these two studies were actually put forward by the drug proponents themselves.
If these psychedelics become legal, is there more money to be made?
Oh, certainly, they would have huge profits in selling the psychedelics. And so we cannot rule out the possibility that they will come back again. They already have been coming back every single year like a broken record. So we encourage everybody to stay alert and keep fighting hard if they ever come back.
They say follow the money. That's not my expertise as a physician. My expertise is the cost on your health, cost on your life. And that needs to be accounted to whatever profits somebody is making.
There's a lot of money to be made. And in fact, my concern is public safety. I too am not the person that follows the money, but I agree we need to follow the money. Who's making the money off of this? And it's probably pharmaceutical who's pushing it. But when you legalize drugs, and what's happened, experience has shown us over the past that when you legalize drugs, you actually increase the black market as well, and which creates a lot of money going to drug dealers and who people are buying that don't know exactly what they're getting. And it increases robberies because typically there's a lot of cash involved, which brings your violence up. And there's a whole domino effect when it seems when you legalize a drug.
I think it's important that we've talked about all the adverse outcomes and things for psychedelic. I think, if we're thinking about the future of America, you're thinking about our children and our youth, and we want them to protect their brain. They have only one brain. You get only one shot at it. It's not done growing till you're 25 years old, and you really don't want to expose the growing brain to any type of drug, whether it's psychedelic, marijuana, alcohol, tobacco. It increases addiction. It hurts your brain, and it's important to protect it.
She's absolutely right. It affects decision-making, motivation. That's all part of the brain, the mood that it affects, and it makes students usually end up dropping out when they start using drugs, and they don't become good employees because they don't have good motivation. And so there's a whole different part of the brain that affects a lot of what happens when these kids do use drugs, and I don't think they realize what they're doing.
Well, at this point, I would like to say that legalizing the psychedelics, we actually have many more problems than the benefits. And, the most important point is that the psychedelics can easily cause hallucination immediately, resulting in serious tragedies and accidents. And after all, public safety should be the number one top priority of our legislators.
Well, thank you for coming on California Insider.
Yeah,
Thank you for the invitation.
Now we go to Andrew Sorcini with Beverly Hills Precious Metals, who's sponsoring this video. The dollar has lost about 10% of its value over the last 6 months. Andrew, you've been in the gold business and you've been watching currencies, and what's happening?
Well, when we've seen the dollar get devalued by a lot of the BRICS nations, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a slew of other countries out there, they're trying to not use the dollar anymore. So the dollar is actually going down in value, but gold and silver are up about 25% each this year.
A lot of us that have international experience, we understand that the dollar is not really replaceable.
I do ultimately believe that. I think that the dollar does need to be backed by something real. So, for example, in June of last year, the Saudi Arabia did not renew its contract for the petrodollar. It was a 50-year deal. It lasted exactly 50 years, from 1974 to 2024, and they did not renew it. So before that, the dollar was on the gold standard. It was backed by real gold. But when the dollar was backing the oil trades out of Saudi Arabia, that made it so that if China wanted to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, they're trading in the dollar. It was a great, great move for the U.S. and for the dollar. But now that that is no longer the case, the dollar is struggling to find its place, but it is still the top currency in the whole world. It's still the world's reserve currency, but I do believe we need to go to a gold-backed dollar in some way.
In your space, there's a lot of people that talk about gold and they hype things up. They always say the dollar is going to crash, and there's a lot of hype.
It is true. There's so many companies out there that will call you and say, we just got 28 gold coins that were on the bottom of the ocean for 500 years on a shipwreck, and we've taken them out of the ocean, and we've got like 43 coins left, and you need to buy these today or you'll never get them again. You guys don't need to worry about those gimmicks here. We just offer gold and silver. We don't pressure people into doing it. And we don't really use the whole sky is falling thing to get you to do it. It's just gold and silver are a great hedge. Here in the United States, after the Great Depression, or probably even more so after World War II, we felt so sheltered that we're always taken care of here in the US, and that we don't need things like gold and silver to protect everything that we've worked for. But really, it is a great thing to own as part of your portfolio. It's the anchor, so to speak. When your real estate or stocks are down, your gold and silver will go up in value. So it really is a good thing to have in your portfolio. We've educated so many Americans, especially here right in Los Angeles, being born and raised here in California. I've actually been in this business for almost 40 years, based out of Los Angeles.
And this is a tool for preserving capital. It's not a money-making tool. It's like you have to go into it from the perspective that this is going to help preserve capital, not make extreme returns, even though in the last few years that has happened, right?
That's the number one reason that people should invest in gold and silver, because one way that it preserves capital is through inflation. The things that we buy with our dollar are starting to buy less and less because the dollar's lost a little bit of buying power due to inflation. But when gold goes up with inflation, that's how you offset it. And it's a great tool for that.
And can people hold this in their IRA accounts, retirement accounts?
Right now, that's a very popular way to do it. And people always have a lot of questions on how this works. So I do recommend that people reach out to us. But you can take an IRA, a 401k, you can take a government TSP account, and almost any other retirement account. You can roll it into a precious metals IRA that holds real physical gold and silver that's stored in a third-party depository in a lockbox with your name in it, and it's insured. And this is not a taxable event. So if you were to go and take $50,000 out of your IRA and try to buy gold with that, you could do it, but you'll have to pay tax on that $50,000. But when you roll it over from an IRA to a precious metals IRA, you bypass that. It's completely legal, and you can own physical gold and silver in the IRA. And your regular financial advisor isn't going to tell you about this because it's not an option that they have.
Now, how can people contact you?
They should go to our website, which is bh-pm.com/California Insider. And again, if you Google Andrew Sorcini or Beverly Hills Precious Metals, okay, you'll see our website. When you go on there, go on the partners page and find the landing page for California Insider and fill out the online form. Okay, you put in your first name, last name, email address, how you heard about us. You can put CMAC, or you could put California Insider. And the notes section is the most important because we offer a free consultation, and most people welcome that. Sometimes people will write in the notes section, I'm a newbie, I don't know anything about gold and silver. Please help me get the education necessary so that I can make a good decision for me and my family. Other people say retirement account. I want to learn how this works. Or I don't need a consultation. I've been buying gold and silver for years. I just want to give you a shot to earn my business. Whatever you want in the notes section helps me get you the best help from my company. And our response time is lightning quick, and we do not pressure people. We recommend that you, if you're not sure, you take a step back, talk with your family about it, pray about it if you need to. But this is an important decision, and you don't want to make a mistake by making an emotional one. You want to make one based on the education that we help provide you with.
And when you guys call Andrew, make sure to tell them that you're a California Insider viewer, so that they can take good care of you guys.
Absolutely. And we're really looking forward to speaking with everybody that reaches out. And we're available on the weekends. We're available late into the evening. So call or fill out the online form at any point, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible. You can reach out to us at 866-346-5325. And I'll repeat it again. It's 866-346-5325.
And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, we're going to leave you a link below so you can click on the link and get to the form. Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here, and I hope to have the opportunity to jump back on and talk about more specific issues on how gold and silver can help people.